Welcome to our deep dive, everybody. Today we're tackling the gig economy.
Oh, yeah, the gig economy.
You know the one? With all those promises of freedom and flexibility?
Maybe even a millionaire or two from a side hustle.
Right. We'll be exploring the promises, the pitfalls, and trying to get a sense of where things are headed.
Sounds good.
Our guide for this journey is the book Gigged.
Gigged, okay.
It mixes personal stories with economic analysis to give us, well, a real insider perspective.
Interesting.
So by the end of this deep dive, you'll be well equipped to navigate this whole new world of work.
I like it.
Whether you're thinking about gig work for yourself, employing gig workers, or just, curious about this massive shift we're seeing.
Yeah, it's a big one. You know what's really interesting about this topic?
What's that?
The gig economy really took off after that 2008 recession.
Oh, that makes sense.
People were looking for anything, new opportunities, and, well, this seemed like the fresh start everyone wanted.
A fresh start.
Totally.
And speaking of fresh starts, Gigged introduces us to Abe.
Abe.
He was a waiter in Kansas City, and at first he was really skeptical about Uber.
Uber, huh?
Yeah, remember their slogan? No shifts, no boss, no limits.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
It felt like too good to be true, almost.
It was a powerful message, though,
Yeah.
especially for people who were feeling, burnt out or stuck in those traditional jobs. That idea of being your own boss, setting your own hours, and that unlimited earning potential,
Oh, yeah,
it was appealing to a lot of folks.
absolutely. And it really did seem like everyone was, jumping on the bandwagon.
Yeah.
I mean, Abe's coworker was supposedly making, $500 every single weekend just driving for Uber.
Wow, $500 a weekend.
I know.
That's a lot of money, especially back then.
For Abe, it wasn't even just about the money.
No.
He had this whole dream of becoming a millionaire through Uber.
A millionaire.
It's a huge leap, from his everyday life as a waiter.
Yeah, totally.
And Uber was smart. They knew how to, fuel that excitement,
How so?
They used affiliate marketing,
Uh-huh.
encouraging drivers like Abe to recruit all their friends.
Oh, so like a pyramid scheme?
Kinda.
Yeah.
But with bonuses for every new sign-up.
I see. So instead of spending tons on regular advertising, they just tapped into their drivers' enthusiasm.
Exactly.
That's pretty clever, actually.
Very effective.
But I wonder, did it really benefit the drivers in the long run?
That's a good question. It brings us to flexibility,
Flexibility.
like the holy grail of the gig economy.
Right.
Companies and executives constantly touted it as, the ultimate puck.
Work on your own terms, all that.
Exactly. Be your own boss, set your own hours. Gigged introduces us to Christy Milland.
Christy Milland.
She's a mom from Toronto, super resourceful. She turned to the gig economy out of necessity, needed work that could, fit around her life.
I see.
And Christy, she had this amazing entrepreneurial spirit. She had tried everything, building fan websites, selling Beanie Babies.
Mm-hmm. Wow, Beanie Babies, that takes me back.
She was a hustler.
Sounds like it.
And initially, she was drawn to that flexibility of gig work.
Sure.
But, and this is where it gets interesting, the reality for a lot of people wasn't as rosy.
What do you mean?
Unpredictable schedules,
Okay.
inconsistent income,
Yeah.
always chasing the next gig.
Right.
It wasn't that carefree, independent lifestyle they always showed in the ads,
So it wasn't all it was cracked up to be.
Right. Gigged shows us this contrast through Gary.
Gary.
He worked in a virtual call center.
Oh, a virtual call center.
Yeah, and he was constantly struggling with unpredictable hours and income.
Despite that supposed flexibility?
Exactly.
Interesting. So flexibility is a bit of a double-edged sword, then.
It seems that way. For some, it's empowering.
Mm.
But for others, it creates this sense of instability.
Yeah, I can see that.
And we can't forget about technology's role in all this.
Technology, of course.
The gig economy was presented as this tech-driven revolution, right?
All right. Yeah, using platforms and apps to connect workers with opportunities.
Exactly. Platforms like Amazon's Mechanical Turk and Upwork were hailed as these, democratizing forces.
I remember that. Opening up opportunities for anyone with an internet connection.
Exactly.
But there's always a but.
Right. Gigged introduces us to Terrence. He taught a gig economy class in Arkansas.
Okay.
And he saw firsthand how his students struggled to find decent paying work on platforms like Upwork.
So it wasn't as easy as it sounded.
Not quite. And Christy, she noticed something else.
What was that?
This kind of race to the bottom on these platforms.
Race to the bottom, what do you mean?
Workers from countries with lower costs of living, they would just keep undercutting each other on price,
Oh, I see.
making it almost impossible to earn a livable wage.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. That makes sense. So globalization and technology intersecting in ways that, well, maybe weren't intended,
Exactly.
and leaving some workers behind in the process.
It really highlights those challenges people faced in this whole new landscape.
Mhm.
I'm actually really curious to explore the darker side of this so-called freedom.
Yeah, let's dive into that. That brings us to a big one, a major issue that's been around even before companies like Uber.
What's that?
This whole thing about misclassification of workers.
Right. This whole debate about whether gig workers are employees or independent contractors.
Exactly.
That distinction makes a huge difference, right?
Oh, absolutely. For wages, benefits, legal protections, all of it.
For sure.
What's fascinating is this practice was already pretty common, even before those platforms like Uber came on the scene.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Gigged actually uses Arise as an example.
Arise.
It's a customer service company.
Uh-huh.
But they have this really, really complex subcontracting system.
Sounds complicated.
It is. Workers are layers removed from the actual client.
Oh, wow.
It makes it really tough to even figure out who's responsible for what.
So how does that play out in the book?
Well, Gigged talks about Gary, our virtual call center worker. Remember him?
Yeah.
He got caught in this whole web.
Oh, no.
And because he was classified as an independent contractor, he was being paid, get this, below minimum wage.
Seriously?
Yeah.
So he basically experienced wage theft because of that classification.
Exactly. It shows how vulnerable workers are in these systems,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to fair pay.
That's awful. And didn't this whole misclassification thing lead to all those lawsuits?
Oh, absolutely.
Against all those gig companies like Uber and Instacart?
Yep, a whole wave of them.
It became like this central battleground in how we define the future of work.
Sure. Makes you wonder, though.
What's that?
Why not just classify everyone as employees?
Yeah, there's no law against offering flexibility to employees, right?
You'd think so, but Gigged highlights this analysis by Fortune.
Okay.
They estimated that classifying drivers as employees would have cost Uber billions of dollars annually.
Billions.
Billions.
So it seems like there were some pretty powerful financial incentives driving these classification decisions.
Yeah, but it came at a cost, for sure.
For the workers.
For the workers.
Mm.
The lack of traditional benefits in gig work, it's actually part of a much larger trend.
Oh, how so?
This decline of benefits for workers across a bunch of industries.
Like that safety net is slowly unraveling.
Exactly. We see examples of this all over.
Like what?
Think about pensions. They
Yeah.
used to be super common.
Yeah.
Now they're being replaced by 401k plans.
Where the responsibility is shifted onto the worker.
Right, onto individual workers and the risk, too.
Hmm?
Healthcare costs are skyrocketing,
It's tough for a lot of folks to afford coverage.
especially those without employer-sponsored plans. And Gigged really drives this point home.
About what?
Financial insecurity
Okay.
for so many Americans,
Including gig workers.
especially gig workers. So many are living paycheck to paycheck.
And one unexpected expense could just be devastating.
Absolutely. Senator Mark Warner, he really picked up on this issue.
Right.
He saw the gig economy as this reflection of a bigger problem,
Like what?
this widening gap between the haves and have-nots.
Right.
And he became a strong advocate for solutions.
Like what kinds of solutions?
Specifically looking at how to make those portable benefits work for everyone.
So people who don't fit the mold, the traditional employment mold.
Exactly. It's like our system, the way it's set up, it's designed for that old world.
With those stable, full-time jobs.
Right. And it just doesn't work that well in this new world.
With people piecing together income from different sources.
Yeah, constantly on the move. And there's another big challenge Gigged explores.
It is.
This power imbalance in the gig economy. Workers, it's tough for them to organize and advocate for themselves.
I can imagine.
They're spread out
Yeah.
across different platforms,
Right.
often working alone.
Yeah. And the book talks about Abe trying to organize a strike, right?
Yes, an Uber driver strike.
Huh.
A valiant effort, for sure.
But it didn't really make the impact he was hoping for.
Not quite. It seems like those platforms, Uber and the like, they hold all the cards.
Yeah, they control the algorithms.
Set the rates.
They can deactivate drivers with hardly any notice.
Exactly. It's a far cry from that image of entrepreneurial freedom they sold us on, right?
It's almost like the opposite.
Yeah, this power dynamic, it makes it so hard for workers. to negotiate for better pay,
Yeah.
to improve working conditions.
Or to even have a voice in the decisions that directly affect them.
Absolutely.
So with all these challenges, where do we go from here? What are the solutions?
That's the big question. Gigged actually explores some really interesting approaches.
Like what?
Well, one that stood out to me was this idea of a good job strategy.
A good job strategy, okay.
It's this idea that treating workers well, it can actually be a competitive advantage for businesses.
Okay.
Interesting, right? Gigged talks about managed by Q.
Managed by Q.
They're a cleaning service startup. At first, they followed the typical gig economy model, partnering with subcontractors. But then they decided to switch things up.
How so?
They directly employed their cleaners,
Wow.
offering benefits,
Okay.
and even equity shares in the company.
That's pretty radical, going against the whole gig economy mindset.
It was a big move, but their reasoning was fascinating.
What was it?
They believed that investing in their workers would lead to better service,
Makes sense.
happier clients,
Right.
and ultimately a stronger, more sustainable business.
So a win-win in theory.
Exactly. A really interesting experiment.
Yeah. Challenging the status quo.
And some other companies tried it too.
Like who?
Ship, Munchery,
Oh, yeah.
although not all of them were successful.
Right. So it shows there's no easy fix.
Right. Finding a more equitable system, it's going to require some experimentation.
Trial and error.
Adaptation.
Yeah.
You know, speaking of alternative models,
Yeah.
Gigged also talks about platform cooperatives.
Platform cooperatives. That sounds interesting.
It is. Imagine a platform like Uber, but it's owned and operated by the workers themselves.
Whoa.
That could really shift the balance of power, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. So the workers would have more control.
Right. More autonomy, a larger share of the profits. Gigged highlights Christie's vision for this.
Christy.
She wanted to create a worker-run version of Mechanical Turk.
That's ambitious.
It is. She was inspired by her experience with Dynamo.
Dynamo.
It's an online organizing platform that she helped create.
I see. So she saw the potential for workers to really, really have a say.
Exactly. Putting workers at the center, not treating them as expendable.
But starting a cooperative business, that's got to be tough, right?
Oh, absolutely. And scaling it, even tougher. Gigged brings in some insights from Loconomics.
Economics, okay.
It was a cooperative version of TaskRabbit.
Ah, I see.
And it really illustrates those challenges. It takes more than just innovative technology.
It's a whole different mindset.
Yeah, willingness to collaborate, embrace shared ownership. It's a whole different way of thinking about work.
And business. And we can't forget about policy.
Well, of course not. Gigged looks at some policy solutions aimed at providing benefits.
Benefits for?
Workers outside that traditional structure.
Okay. What kind of solutions were we talking about?
Well, one example is Senator Warner's push to try out these new benefit models.
Okay. Like what?
Things like portable benefits accounts.
Portable benefits accounts. What are those?
Workers could accrue benefits across all their different gigs and employers.
So like a safety net that isn't tied to just one job.
Exactly. Much more relevant to how people work today. It's like acknowledging that the old system just isn't cutting it anymore.
Yeah. But these new policies, I bet they face some pushback.
Oh, definitely. Companies are worried about the costs.
Right.
And some labor groups are concerned about weakening existing protections.
It's a tough balance, finding solutions that work for everyone.
Workers, businesses, society as a whole, it's complicated.
It requires a lot of thought, a willingness to compromise. What really struck me about Gigged is how it uses the gig economy as like this lens to examine those bigger trends that are shaping the future of work. You know?
Yeah, it's not just about those ride-sharing apps or freelance gigs.
Right. It's about how technology is like fundamentally changing what work even looks like, how we define it.
How we value it.
Yeah.
And who ultimately benefits from it.
It feels like we're at a crossroads. We're trying to figure out how to make this new world of work actually work for everyone.
Definitely. Sustainable and equitable.
Yeah.
And Gigged highlights those key tensions we need to address.
Like what?
That allure of flexibility, that promise of being your own boss.
Right.
But then there's those hidden costs,
Yeah.
the lack of benefits, and those power imbalances that can leave workers vulnerable.
It seems like that initial excitement, the hype about the gig economy,
Yeah.
it's given way to a more, I don't know, a more nuanced perspective.
More critical in some cases. Gigged doesn't shy away from those downsides.
No, it doesn't. It's not all sunshine and roses.
Exactly. There aren't any easy answers.
Right.
But it gives us this framework for thinking about the challenges and opportunities ahead.
Yeah.
And it highlights the importance of worker agency,
Yeah.
innovation and finding policy solutions that work.
So if we were to boil gig down to just a few key takeaways, what would they be?
I think one of the biggest is that the gig economy, while it offers flexibility, it often comes with hidden costs and some pretty significant risks for
Just
workers.
like anything else, I guess. There's always some kind of trade-off.
Yeah.
But gigged helped me understand those trade-offs more clearly, for sure. It also really revealed those anxieties people feel
What?
about economic security, in a world that's changing so fast.
That fear of falling behind.
Yeah, not
Yeah.
being able to keep up with the demands of this new economy.
Absolutely. Gigged doesn't just focus on the mechanics of the gig economy,
Oh,
though.
what do you mean?
It explores the human impact, too. The emotional toll all this uncertainty takes on people.
On families. And that brings us to that final thought that gigged leaves us with, and it's a big one.
Okay, sure.
What could a truly equitable and sustainable future of work actually look like? One that balances flexibility with security,
Right.
innovation with fairness.
Individual opportunity with collective well-being.
That's the question, isn't it? The million-dollar question.
It is, and I don't think there's one simple answer.
Probably not.
But gigged, it gives us the tools to at least start that conversation.
It encourages us to think critically about the choices we make as consumers,
As workers, as employers,
as citizens,
it's a call to action for all of us to be more informed
to be more engaged.
and to be more proactive in shaping the future of work, not just for ourselves.
But for everyone.
It's a reminder that the future isn't predetermined.
It's something we're creating right now.
Through the choices we make, the policies we support, and our collective imagination.
So keep exploring these questions and keep pushing for a better future of work. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you found it insightful and maybe even a little empowering.
Until next time, keep diving deep.